This is the newsroom for today, Thursday, June 10, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1, Scar TV, NTN, and Tarsi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, the above normal rainfall in Guyana is expected to continue until August. After a year of walking away from an abusive relationship, a young woman says she is being stalked by her ex-boyfriend who has threatened her life and that of her family.
We have to, in Guyana, walk the walk, not just talk the talk. The system needs to change.
An ILO study has found that suicide, crime, and alcohol consumption increased after the closure of the sugar estates. And in sport, upgrades ongoing at several national sport facilities in the city, and competitive cycling returns to West Demerara on June 20. With the news, I'm Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for joining us. We started by telling you that Guyanese are being placed on notice that the above normal rainfall which the country has experienced in recent weeks, leading to widespread flooding, is likely to continue for another 2 months. Prime Minister Brigadier Retired Mark Phillips made a disclosure while providing an update on the flooding situation to the National Assembly on Thursday. To this end, he said flooding also remains a concern over the period June to mid-July. Currently, all the rivers have overtopped, flooding farmlands and residential areas, the Prime Minister said. He described the situation in the hinterland as distressing, explaining that food security is now threatened.
In the past several weeks, high tides and torrential rains have led to flooding in all regions across Guyana. The massive rainfall experienced in May alone was recorded as the second highest rainfall across the country in the last 40 years. Guyana's rainy season usually lasts, Mr. Speaker, until early June for regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The northern parts of regions 6, 7, 8, and 10, while it will continue until early August for regions 9 and the southern parts of region 6. Based on the latest seasonal reports, however, it is estimated that we will continue to experience above normal rainfall during the period June to August 2021. During this period, Mr. Speaker, an increase in the number of wet days and approximately 7 days of extreme wet spells can be expected. Flooding also remains a concern for our nation, at least for the period June into mid-July.
Almost a year after walking away from an abusive relationship, months after securing a restraining order, and in the midst of ongoing police investigations and court hearings, Tiffany Ajeda says the continued harassment from her now ex-boyfriend is incessant. The frustrated 28-year-old hosted a Zoom conference on Thursday with other concerned women, one of whom claimed she too was abused and stalked by the same young man. Ajeda says she feels boxed into a corner and believes the legal system and wider government protection services have so far failed her. But she believes there is still time to properly address the issue and send a message to all other abusers and women who may currently be in abusive relationships looking for a way out. A disappointed Ajeda is daunted that, by her estimations, enough is not being done to protect her and, by extension, all other women in similar situations in Guyana.
I've put this out there, and the very people I've seen talked about, about abusive relationships in Guyana, people talk, but they don't walk the walk. I realize that. It's all for show. They say things like, oh, you gotta leave these abusive relationships, but it's never that easy. It's never that easy. And I'm sure millions of women can tell you that. And I've been receiving so many messages from women that's left Guyana, that's in Guyana, and who's currently. And the very people who are out there saying things like, oh my God, somebody dies. When a woman dies, you see all the activists come out, you see all the ministers and everybody want to be posting. But then now I put this out there, I still haven't heard from a minister themselves who claimed to be talking about these things and talking against it. I haven't heard from any of them. I haven't heard from anybody from the police force. And people are offering support, and I admire that. But it's not just that. We have to, in Guyana, walk the walk, not just talk the talk. The system needs to change. I'm just looking on to see what's going to be done about my situation, because I don't want to become another statistic. And the reason why I'm putting my evidence out there is if anything happens to me, then the world must know what was going on and what was going on with me, because he's not going to turn around and say, okay, I was an abuser. And then he's making all these reports. And then if he decides to kill me or do something to me, he can say self-defense. No, I had to do it.
She recalled that in August last year, her boyfriend became abusive and hit her to her face, resulting in lacerations to the lips. Ajeda said she was taken to the hospital by him and told to lie to the doctor about her injuries, but she nonetheless confided in the doctor and revealed the truth. She would subsequently make a report, forcing her boyfriend to evade the police for days before turning up at the police station with his lawyer to make a report against her. Both were charged and released on bail. They appeared in court, and since then, he has been stalking her at her job and her home, forcing her to flee the country. Now, an 18-year-old development officer attached to the Aishaltan Region 9 Regional Democratic Council's accounting unit has been arrested by police following allegations that he embezzled more than $800,000. The monies were intended to be paid to government employees within the Aishaltan district. Police headquarters in a statement noted that on May 25, the sum of $8.2 million was handed over to the suspect with the corresponding pay sheets for May 2021 salaries. However, days later on June 2, several employees within the district complained of not receiving their salaries. An internal probe was launched, and it was discovered that a total of $867,144 could not be accounted for. Police said that the suspect then fled the Aishaltan district but was later arrested. Investigations are ongoing. A study of the socio-economic impact of sugar workers following the closure of 4 of the Guyana Sugar Corporation sugar estates has found that significant hardship was faced by the workers, driving communities into depression and resulting in significant hardship for families. Vishanu Raghuber has our story.
The International Labour Organization (ILO) on Thursday officially launched a study conducted on the socio-economic impact of the closure of the Wales, East Demerara, Rose Hall and Skeldon estates between 2016 to 2017. During that period, a total of 5,160 workers of the Guyana Sugar Corporation Gaisuku were laid off. Through this study, focus group interviews were conducted with 41 workers who were laid off from the closed estates, and it was found that their livelihoods were severely compromised. In fact, the report highlighted that only one worker felt she was better off, compared to when she worked with Gaisuku. According to the report prepared by local economist Dr. Thomas Singh, weekly household incomes fell by 64%, from an average of $32,238 to $18,450 after the closures. Additionally, when the study was conducted, some 2 years after the closure of the estates, a significant number of workers were still unemployed. And the study reported that among those who found new jobs, new skills had to be learned at their cost, though starting over was made easier by the severance they received. The average severance was about $838,177.
So entire communities were sent into depression because of the sheer dominance of sugar estates and the closure of those sugar estates. The dominance of sugar estates for income, employment, business prospects, and the aspirations of families. As I said, it's not just about livelihoods, it's about the sustainability of livelihoods. The closure of estates was a shock that rocked communities. Career aspirations of children, documented here, for being either teachers, nurses, police officers, doctors, or even other things. Those career aspirations of children were shattered. Suicide and alcohol consumption and crime increased in each of the affected communities, as perceived by the respondents in the focus groups. As mentioned before, incomes fell significantly. So livelihoods were not sustainable after closures of the estates.
Following the fallout of the closures, the study made several recommendations that would help to address the socio-economic impact felt by the thousands of people, and for the government to consider as it forges ahead with its intentions to reopen the estates and revitalize the sugar industry. One recommendation Dr. Singh highlighted was the creation of a national investment and diversification strategy for Guyana that would help to diversify the economy in ways that would counterbalance the price volatility that characterizes commodity markets such as the sugar and oil industries. Through coordinated and complementary large-scale investments in many sectors simultaneously, the economist posited that foreign demand for products could be tapped into, leading to an increase in the size of the markets and subsequently the growth and development of the local economy. Specifically, investments in cellulosic ethanol using sugarcane and other forms of biomass could also help to increase the profitability of the sugar industry, Dr. Singh reported as well. Meanwhile, Senior Minister within the Office of the President with responsibility for finance, Dr. Ashni Singh, noted that this report would provide significant food for thought as the government aims to revitalize the sugar industry.
I will say that the report makes a number of recommendations which we will of course study. Some of the recommendations coincide very closely with our thinking already in government. Some we will need to reflect on a little bit more closely and consider a little bit more carefully before we decide how to proceed. But the report certainly provides a lot of food for thought.
Additionally, President of the Guyana Agriculture and Workers Union GAU, C. Paul Narain, said it is the union's hope that policymakers consider the report's recommendations to ensure that the livelihoods of the workers are maintained. Reporting for the Newsroom, I am Vishani Raghavir.
Over 300 vaccinated against COVID-19 in the Pomeroon during health outreach, and a Berbice woman is arrested for faking a COVID-19 vaccination certificate, says the Newsroom. More than 300 people living in the Pomeroon were vaccinated with both first and second doses of the COVID-19 vaccines during an outreach and assessment from the local health authorities in light of the severe flooding. This is according to the Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, during his COVID-19 update on Thursday.
And so far, they have not reported any outbreak of diarrheal diseases or waterborne diseases. So that's a good thing. And perhaps the prophylactic measures that they would have taken by distributing bleach and those sort of things might be working. We were able over the last 2 days to do about 300 vaccinations in the Pomeroon. So many persons came out to get their first dose vaccine. So that was quite a successful exercise. So when the team went into the Pomeroon, not only did they do the surveillance for waterborne diseases, but they were also able to do immunization. So I think that's a positive thing. We still have a lot of people in the Pomeroon, however, that we need to vaccinate. And again, we want to urge more people to come out and get the vaccines.
We tell you now that a 49-year-old woman who was scheduled to travel to the United States never made it onto the flight after she was arrested by police on Tuesday for forgery. She's accused of forging her COVID-19 vaccination certificate. Police said they were responding to a report made at a Rose Hall outpost by a staff nurse attached to the Williamsburg Health Center. According to the report, the woman visited the health center and reported that her card was misplaced and requested a replacement. The woman, who police did not identify, reportedly claimed that she received her first dose on May 27 and was due for her second shot on June 25. She was told by the nurse that she is required to start over the process for another COVID-19 vaccine certificate, to which she agreed. After she received the certificate, she left the health center without having the process completed. At home, she reportedly forged the nurse responsible for administering the vaccine's signature on the said certificate. She was subsequently arrested and placed on $50,000 station bail. She is expected to appear in court to answer to the charges soon. As he continues his nationwide outreach in the flood-affected areas in Guyana, President Dr. Irfaan Ali announced on Wednesday that the government will be looking to creditors, bankers, and other financial institutions to lend support to the thousands of farmers who suffered millions of dollars in losses as the seasonal flooding hits its worst point. The head of state, during a visit to the Chesney housing scheme on the Quarantine Coast, pledged the government's full support to help the farmers rebuild.
As the country battles one of the worst flooding disasters, President Irfaan Ali has assured affected residents that government will lend support in helping them to rebuild and recover after the floodwaters have receded. The president relayed to residents on the quarantine coast during an outreach on Wednesday that government will seek support from financial institutions to help the many farmers who have lost much of their livelihoods due to the flooding.
And that is why I'm here, to let you know that the situation is far from over, but we are going to be here throughout. The same support you talk about that the government give you, the same support that the government give you in the initial phase will continue. In relation to the losses, we cannot do anything about that right now until the water recedes. When the water recedes, the CDC, the Ministry of Agriculture, the RDC, will have a full assessment of the damages. They will have a full assessment of the damages, and then we will have another intervention.
To bolster that support, the president said that government will approach Parliament for a supplementary provision to secure additional resources to support the efforts. Further, he asked residents gathered at the Chesney housing scheme to remember that while systems are in place to mitigate the flooding, the torrential downpour continues to be an issue, and as such, he urged them to be patient.
This has been historic levels of rainfall, and the volume of water in the backlands and across our country is just enormous. Enormous volume of water. Not only you here in Region 6, but all across the country. Unfortunately, that water has to drain. It has to drain through the system, and it has to drain into the sea, into the Atlantic. One of the things that we have to appreciate is that even if the rain stops today and the pump continues to work, just because of the volume of water that has to come down, the water will keep coming for some time. So I want my sister who just spoke to appreciate that. That it is the volume of water that is still in the backland that has to be drained.
According to President Ali, the flooding situation has now been classified as a level 2 disaster. This, according to the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency's regional response mechanism, is one in which the national capacity to respond is not overwhelmed, but some external assistance is required. The affected state may or may not declare a disaster. In comparison, a level 3 event overwhelms the capacity of an affected state to respond. The head of state was accompanied by the Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, Minister of Local and Regional Development, Nigel Darmlal, Director General of the Civil Defense Commission, Lieutenant Colonel Kester Craig, representatives of the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, the Guyana Water Incorporated, and other key stakeholders. For the Newsroom, I am Shakima Day.
At the first sitting of the National Assembly since a High Court ruling that the appointment of Vikash Ramkissoon and Sarah Brown as members of Parliament is unlawful, the two MPs were absent. And in his first public comment on the matter, Speaker of the National Assembly Mansour Nadir noted his intention to respect that ruling. It comes even as an appeal to the ruling is still pending and an application has been made by the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, Anil Nandlal, for a stay of the ruling until the appeal is heard and determined. At the start of the 28th sitting of Parliament on Thursday, Nadir referred to a 2016 statement to the House by the former Speaker, Barton Scotland.
We have had, since our last sitting, a ruling by our courts regarding two persons who were sitting in the National Assembly. I refer to the words of the Honourable former Speaker, Mr. Scotland, on the 27th of February 2016. And he concluded this way: the honourable members are not here, but I believe that I owe it to members of this House to understand their absence. Whatever views may exist in relation to the decision of the court at any time, the first obligation is to obey those decisions, and then we proceed from here. As I've mentioned, the honourable members, the persons so mentioned are not here.
Brown is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Amerindian Affairs Ministry, while Ramkissoon is the Parliamentary Secretary to the Agriculture Ministry. The law makes provision for the President to appoint 4 technocrat members of Parliament and 2 parliamentary secretaries who will not have the same voting rights as elected members extracted from a list of candidates. This is the Newsroom. Chairman of the Private Sector Commission, Paul Chung, says there is only so much that can be done on the part of businesses to help consumers deal with the current hike in commodity prices. The hike in food prices is still being felt not just in Guyana but across the world. It was President Dr. Irfan Ali who, during an interview with the Newsroom, appealed to businesses to consider lowering their price margins, but this, according to the PSC chairman, may not be possible due to the current constraints of increased shipping costs, a direct result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
The prices, prices in general, not only in Guyana, across the world has been going up because of COVID, because of increased freight rates, increased energy costs, and so I'm sure businesses have heard what the president said, and they're looking at how they can cut their margins, but at the same time, there's so much the businesses can do when the costs keep rising. So, the businesses will play their part, but within the limitation of the margins that they have.
Now, Guyana recently received additional doses of the COVID-19 vaccines, and the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, says there will be 2 additional drive-through vaccination events this weekend to help get people vaccinated.
Well, these drive-thrus have proven to be quite successful because on each occasion we've had in excess of 1,000 persons coming to get vaccinated. So it seems like a popular thing to do. This weekend we are planning to have 2 drive-thrus in Region 4. One would be at the tarmac or the parking lot at Lilindale, where the Movitown Massey store is located. So we'll be working there from 9 in the morning until 4, and that would be on Saturday and Sunday. So we want to encourage people who are on the East Coast and who haven't gotten their vaccines as yet to come out and get their vaccines at this site. We'll also be doing another vaccination drive at this stadium, and so the persons on the East Bank would be able to utilize that. So we're looking at Saturday from 9 in the morning, and we'll go until 6 in the evening at the stadium, and we repeat the same thing on Sunday. So those persons who haven't gotten their vaccine and would like to come at the drive-through, you can do so. And normally, while we would say that it's a drive-through, there are also people who walk through. And so if there are persons who want to come and get their vaccines, we'll be able to give you your vaccine. So whether you walk or you drive, we'll make arrangements for you to get that vaccine. We are also partnering with a number of private sector companies, and so there might be additional incentives if you show up and get your vaccine. Hopefully we'll get at least from these 2 drive-thrus a minimum of 4,000 people on these 2 days. So let's see, maybe we'll break the record, maybe we'll get more. And I guess once we unveil some of the incentives that we'll be giving, maybe more people would come out.
The Private Sector Commission on Thursday received a donation of $2 million from Digicel Guyana to aid its ongoing countrywide flood relief efforts as communities attempt to recover from the disaster. The check was presented to the chairman of the PSC, Paul Chung, by Digicel's Chief Commercial Officer, Simon Pierre, at the PSC's Waterloo Street office. Pierre, in brief remarks, underscored the company's support for its customers who have been affected by the flooding. Meanwhile, the PSC chairman, in his remarks, lauded Digicel for their donation and urged other organizations to lend a hand.
First, let me say that Digicel stands in solidarity with the people in the flood-affected areas. We stand committed in providing support to the government, the CDC, whether it's through entities such as the Private Sector Commission, which we're a member of, or directly to the CDC. We also want our customers to know that we're there with them. Monday, We donated over 25 million in credit to our customers in the flood affected areas so that they can keep connected to their loved ones. We want to also assure them that we're doing everything in our power to ensure that connectivity is maintained in those areas.
I'm happy and I'm thankful to the digital organization company for the very generous donation this morning, which can go a far way in helping our flood relief effort. As we've seen over the past 2 weeks, Guyana is inundated in heavy rainfall. We've witnessed only this morning that it's a level 2 disaster, and all of Guyana needs to come together to assist our brothers and sisters who are suffering at this time. This is a time when we should be in survival mode, because, when we look at the news, we look at the pictures we've seen and those areas that we visited, people are suffering. And I'm happy that Digital has come out and has contributed to this effort, and we look forward for more contribution from other private sector organizations.
When in Newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge reports along with sport. Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We're starting off with some cricket news. Debutant Jayden Seales was impressive, but South Africa had taken a lead by stumps on day 1 of the first test against West Indies in St. Lucia on Thursday. The tourists closed on 128 for 4, a lead of 31, with 3 of those wickets going to Seales. The 19-year-old Trinidadian removed both debutants, Keegan Peterson and Kyle Viren, and Aidan Markram for 60, after Kemar Roach had made the initial breakthrough by dismissing skipper Dean Elgar without scoring. Rassie van der Dussen is not out on 34, and Quinton de Kock for company on 4. Seales has so far taken 3 for 34. Earlier, West Indies had a horrible batting display, being bowled out for a paltry 97. The Caribbean side slipped from 24 without loss to 56 for 5 and was eventually dismissed under 100. Fast bowling pair Lungi Ngidi 5 for 19 and Enrique Noike 4 for 35 did the damage as the Proteas dominated the early exchanges. Jason Holder made 20 and openers Shea Hope and Craig Braffett 15 each. Meanwhile, West Indies batsman Nkrumah Bonner has been diagnosed with a concussion and will play no further part in the first test against South Africa. This was confirmed by Cricket West Indies on Thursday afternoon. Bonner will be replaced by the left-handed batsman Kieran Powell, who was named in West Indies' 30-man squad for this game. The right-handed Bonner was struck on the helmet the first ball he faced from Enrique Noike. The incident required a mandatory concussion test and a change of helmet. The Jamaican was subsequently cleared to resume batting and was eventually dismissed by Kagiso Rabada for 10. Always give 100%. That was the advice of former West Indies fast bowler Sir Curtly Ambrose as he presented young pacer Jayden Seales with his first test cap on Thursday morning in St. Lucia. The Trinidadian youngster made the West Indies final 11 to face South Africa in the first of 2 test matches at the Darren Sammy Cricket Ground.
Right, good morning everyone, and welcome to this wonderful cap presentation today. We have a very important gentleman to make this presentation to Jayden, Sir Curtly Ambrose.
Legend. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Young Seales, I want to first offer my congratulations on making the senior West Indies team. Just want to remind you that you're not doing it for yourself, nor your family and friends. You're doing it for the team and for millions of West Indian supporters at home and abroad, and other supporters as well. Always give up 100%, do the very best you can for your team, and we wish you a long and prosperous career. All right?
Now, England were kept afloat by Don Lawrence's battling 67 not out on a rush's first day of the second test against New Zealand at Edgbaston. In front of a rowdy crowd of 18,000, the hosts found themselves at 175 for 6 on a blameless pitch, despite a fluent 81 from Rory Burns. At one stage, England lost 3 wickets for 13 runs, and later James Bracey fell for a golden duck for his second not in as many test innings. But Lawrence, in only his second home test, added 47 with Oli Stone, then an unbeaten 36 with Mark Wood to track England to 258 for 7. A New Zealand side showing 6 changes from a drawn first test exploited a hint of movement that was on offer. Pace bowlers Trent Bolt and Matt Henry and left-arm spinner Ajaz Patel claimed 2 wickets apiece. All this on a day that James Anderson became England's most capped test cricketer, playing 162 matches to go past the record of Alistair Cook. And local cyclists will be back in action next weekend, June 20, when a road race is held in the West Demerara, covering over 40 miles of the country's roadways. More in this report. Since the start of 2021, cycling is one sport that has been able to remain relatively active, the hosting of its national championship towards the end of May being a major highlight. The Guyana Cycling Federation has been doing its part to ensure cyclists and officials are in conformity with the COVID-19 measures. Much of the same is anticipated when action resumes. The Carlton Wheelers Cycling Club will collaborate with local beverage company Bangs DIH Limited to stage the annual Father's Day Road Race set for West Demerara. The race will pedal off at 8 hours from Schoonard, West Bank Demerara, proceed to Bushy Park, Parika, before returning to the western end of the Demerara Harbour Bridge, covering a distance of 44 miles. Coordinator of the event, Hassan Mohammed, said he's anticipating a competitive event as most of the riders who competed at the national championship are expected to take the starting line. According to Mohammed, the top 6 finishes in the open category will be rewarded, while the top 3 in the junior, veterans, juveniles and ladies categories will also receive a prize. The club, and by extension the Guyana Cycling Federation, is urging all riders and officials to exercise caution and stick within the national COVID-19 measures. And the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, Charles Ramson Jr., says works are ongoing at several sport facilities across the country, including at the main indoor ones. Those are the National Gymnasium on Mandela Avenue and the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall on Homestretch Avenue. The Minister recently shared an update on progress at these facilities, highlighting the government's intention to make them accessible to all Guyanese.
We have some pretty significant projects going on at the Racket Center. I'm hoping. Rain has been a little bit difficult with us and making our timelines unusually delayed, but we're hoping that within another maybe couple of months we would be in a strong position to open the facility. It's getting there. It's definitely getting there. You've got a couple more things to be done. On this one, which is the gymnasium, we've just started our new basketball court here. We've just started our new washroom and shower changing room facility, outdoor facility. That's important for what the multi-purpose intention and objective plan for the gymnasium. It is intended that this gymnasium turns into a multi-purpose sporting facility that people from all around Georgetown can come and have a safe space for them to come and be able to play many sports at the same time, day and night. And so we've updated Steve about the plans that we have here. And then in addition, we're going to be going to the sports hall in a second. We have a couple of projects there as well. One has started, the other one is about to start. And then we have quite a few projects that are going on for the call grain.
And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, Newsroom.gy, our Facebook page and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe, get vaccinated. See you next time.